In this episode of BS with Bob Schmidt, I had the chance to talk with Robertson many years ago. In fact, I mentioned during the interview that my kids were teenagers, and my oldest is now on the verge of being 30 next month, so it was quite a while ago. But the book is called Winning at Entrepreneurship. I had the chance to ask him a bunch of questions from buying and selling your business to which is best, an LLC, an S-Corp, or a partnership. Here's the interview. Robertson joining me. He's the author of the book, Winning at Entrepreneurship, Insider's Tips on Buying, Building, and Selling Your Own Business. Rod, I know that a lot of people are entrepreneurs. A lot of people have their little business on the side. I've got a business on the side, a couple of things that I try to do to try to make money. I'd like to be able to turn that into some big cash someday by selling it off. Is that a good thing to do, or is that something that's even possible to do?
You know, more and more Americans are taking the plunge to own their own businesses, and why shouldn't we? You know, the day of us working for big corporations where, you know, we have a 20-year career are over. And so people are turning more and more to, you know, private enterprise, and there's more money around and guidance and counseling than ever, so the chances of being successful with buying your own business have really elevated.
Now, is it when it comes to buying a business, if you buy a business from somebody, are your chances better at succeeding than if you were to just start your own business?
Now, that is a great question. Yes, buying an existing business that has been operated successfully, you know, over time, versus buying or starting a business is very difficult. The chances of a business being successful starting it are like 15%, and buying an existing business that has just been run down or needs someone to propel it into the year 2016, 2017 is much, much better. It's like 50 to 60%.
How do you go about betting, you know, for yourself or against yourself? You know what I mean?
You know, and the third leg of a business is buying a franchise. But buying a franchise is the safest, supposedly, of all. But you never really can sell it. And if you build it up, you just sort of got to run it as a lifestyle business. So I believe, and so do my peers, that buying an existing business that you can go out and just propel forward is really the way to go.
Now, when you end up buying a new business, Rod, are you going at it the same way, the same systematic way that somebody that ran it before you is doing it if it was successful, or, you know, putting your own spin on that business once you end up, you know, purchasing it?
Looking at a business, to jumpstart or reinvigorate a business, a lot of it has to do with social media and how you propel it forward from its sort of sluggish way it is now. Ideally, everyone licks their chops over seeing a gentleman or a woman in their 60s and 70s sort of in a moribund business that's not propelling it ahead. They're operating in the year 1990, but you can jumpstart it at, you know, fairly little cost to get it to this next level.
How does you mentioned somebody in their 60s and 70s, how does that person go ahead and start doing things social media-wise? Because I know that, I'll take my mother, for example. My mom listens to my show every day as a podcast, but, I mean, I couldn't see my 70-plus-year-old mother doing a business or even knowing how to use Facebook or Google or, you know what I mean?
So what we do is I have a whole bullpen at my company of 20 young people from age 19 to 26 who I attach to businesses to sort of give it the afterburners to move them forward. But owning your own business is not what it's cracked up to be for most people. You know, I think one of the biggest issues is everyone seems to be able to get the money to buy the business, but once you own it, people don't understand that they need a lot of cash to run it. And after you buy it, there's usually a fall-up of customers. There's usually some issues the first 6 months. So you really have to have a steady supply of cash on hand for those downstrokes that happen after you buy a business.
Well, Rod, isn't it every person that owns a business, aren't they like multimillionaires? And, you know, they have plenty of free time because they own the business. They can leave when they want, play golf when they want, go do do whatever they want when they want.
I know a lot of people that get the divorces, I'll tell you that. And, no, owning a business, everyone, it's very exciting, but the business encroaches upon your normal life. There's no shutting the door at 5 o'clock and saying the boss is a dink and leaving. You know, what you have to do is you live with it day and night. And if you're successful, it's a beautiful thing. But if you're not successful, you somehow mentally you have to prepare yourself to put a fence up so you don't ruin the family unit.
What's the difference between somebody that's successful and not successful?
First is how many hours can you work? The second is financial capability that if you're building something, you always have to have like one or two investors sort of lurking out there. If you come up short, that you could grab, if it's a small business, $25,000 to $50,000 from somebody, and then you dilute yourself. But there's ups and downs in businesses. But if you make it through that first year, you usually have the people that do that usually have retrofitted the machine, so to speak, and they plow ahead and do really, really well.
Rod Robertson joining us this morning, Winning at Entrepreneurship, Insider's Tips on Buying, Building, and Selling Your Business. You mentioned if you can make it a year. How do you end up, what kind of steps do you need to take in order to make it that first year, Rod?
Before you buy the company, I bought a pet food company because I like pets. But once I bought the company, I had no idea what dog food or cat food was. I almost tanked. I had to borrow my sister's wedding deposit money to make it. And she still got married, and I paid her back, and everything worked out great. And I drove it up to $10 million in sales, and made a pretty penny when I sold it. But when you're buying a company, you have to have good advisors around you, and I had none, and that's why I almost tanked my business. I should have had pet food experts. I should have had a financial advisor. I should have had a circuit of people that could coach me through the first onerous year.
Now, is the goal of business ownership to sell the business?
Well, it depends, but if you're going to buy it, the first year straightening it out and figuring out what you got. The second year you implement your strategy and start growing. The third year you should be hitting your stride and the profit should be way up. And the fourth and fifth year are really bonanza years. And a lot of people put the 5-year mark as their exit strategy because now you've built it up. It could have plateaued out for whatever reasons, and you have a great track record, and you'll get a premium dollar for it.
Do most businesses plateau?
It depends on what it is. If they're regional small businesses, yes, they do. But if it's a larger business, I just sold a business. It's under agreement now to a gentleman, a healthcare company with 4,000 employees in a state down south, where the guy didn't have anything to deal with about healthcare, but he went out and got all the right people around him, and now he's going to be sitting on top of a monster machine, and I'm hoping it's going to go well for him, but he's going to have a bumpy ride ahead. But none of his money's in, and he has a chance to make millions and millions.
That's what I'd like to do. So is it better, Rod, to buy an existing business or to start something else?
Yeah, starting something else. I'm up here in Boston in a high-tech crowd, and everyone, in a section in my book, it's called the Mad Scientist Club, where all these people have euphoric dreams of the value of the business. And what I did with my book was I took a lot of stories, fun and interesting stories, but some very sobering about people that bought businesses, and sort of outline everything that you don't do when you buy a business, or how. In the book also I go about showing how to gather the money, what to say, all the forms. So it's really a one-stop shop for the wannabe or entrepreneur or somebody that's about to step up.
You talked about a couple of businesses that you've sold that have been successful. Have you had any that weren't successful?
I just had one the other day that just tanked, and it's very disturbing. It had 175 employees. I sold it to a buddy of mine. He did a great job, but the technology changed in the field. My friend was asked to move on, and he did. And the new guys came in, some greedy capitalist guys that had put money up, and they just took it into a nosedive, and 175 people lost their jobs. So it was very, very disturbing.
You mentioned technology kind of overtook or changed in the business. How do you know, as an entrepreneur, how do you know when you need to move to a new technology, or when you need to revamp your website, or when you need to order a 3D printer rather than, you know what I mean? How do you know where to follow up, and how do you know where to go with the different technologies that are out there?
That, again, is a very astute question. I mean, understanding what is the bubble, what are those clouds off in the horizon? A lot of people that seem like great owners of business and everything who know their industry, all of a sudden are selling their business. I have one of them now, and out in the horizon, he can see changes that a new person wouldn't see. So he could sell his business to somebody that is oblivious that in 2 years he's going to be an obsolete company. So you have to have industry experts that can see what's happening in the horizon. Just don't jump in and buy a blind company like I did it. But you know what? The one thing I knew, I wasn't the brightest guy around, but I knew the dogs had to eat dog food.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the first business you bought, was the dog food business?
Yeah. That was the first one I did, and that was good. And then from there, I jumped into a technology business that I was full of, my success, and that one didn't go so well. And then I bought another one that did well. So I'm one win, one loss, and one tie before I got into this business, which is a pretty good batting record, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing baseball for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what are some of the reasons that new businesses fail, Rod?
Again, the largest is the lack of capital after they close. The second, this one's really interesting. This is the second biggest one, is they don't understand their cash flow. So everyone's gets their financial statements that are 45 days old or 30 days old, but that's ancient history. Today, with all these easy software programs, each day you have to master your financials and understand exactly how much you have in the bank, how much you have in receivables, how much you have in inventory or payables, and mentally you have to tie it in so it's in your head. Every day you can adjust your game and understand where you are in that point in time.
Now, isn't that micromanaging, though? Because I know that, when you and I were kids, and I think you're older than I am by the picture that you have. But
of course.
When I was a kid, for grades, let's use grades as an example, I had to, every semester I'd get in trouble because my grades were bad. Nowadays, parents can go on. I've got teenage kids myself that I can go online and look at their grades every single day, and you can see them fluctuating if they got an assignment done, whatever. As a parent, I don't want to micromanage that. I'm guessing as a business owner, when it comes to your money and stuff, do you want to micromanage and look at that every day and go to the, is that something that you're going to want to do and live and die by each and every day?
No, I'm with you. I see these people, they hide behind their emails, they hide behind their Twitter and their blogs. The best thing to do is pick up the phone and talk to people, because people that own businesses are usually 50 years older or decision makers, 45 and over, and those people grew up talking to people. But this whole new generation of people hiding behind the clicker and the keyboard, these people are doing themselves a grave disservice. But I think you can encapsulate each day as a business owner with the last 10 minutes of the day recapping your financials and having it stuck in your head.
I'm guessing if you're a young person and you know how to look somebody in the eye and talk to them and have a good firm handshake, you're going to go pretty far.
No, and that's really true. I have the good fortune teaching at the lecturing at the Harvard Business School and these other places, and these people are so sunk deep into their technology, they forget the human element in business, and they all just flee to the spreadsheet. So you don't make money looking at the spreadsheet. You can, but you make money by meeting people and talking and using those old world skills.
Rod Robertson is our guest this morning, an international consultant, author of the book Winning at Entrepreneurship: Insider's Tips on Buying, Building, and Selling Your Own Business. So when it comes to your business, should you do it as a sole proprietor? Should you do it as an LLC? Should you do it as an S corp, an I corp, a corporation?
Got it. I think the worst thing you can do is have a 50-50 partner. That is death in the afternoon at the first junction. You can get locked up. Someone has to be the owner, and the best way is an LLC, which protects you more than any other corporation, and it allows the money to flow through to you personally. So it's a real nice vehicle. They're $500 to set up. Most of the people get them set up in Delaware, where there's easier laws to set it up. But really, don't go for that 50-50 partnership. You have to have a tiebreaker in there somehow.
Yeah, I couldn't see marriage is hard enough, let alone having a business partner on top of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, the kids are the tiebreaker in the marriage.
Aye. So finally, when you got an LLC, because that's what my business is, an LLC. So can personal assets affect the bottom line of a business then too, or no?
The personal assets, if there's one thing that you're touching on here, which is a raw nerve, is when you buy a company, make sure you're what we call judgment proof. That there's certain assets like your house and certain things that are really dear to you cannot be open to your creditors. Because when you buy a small business, you're signing on the line with the bank. Mm-hmm. But if you give the bank a personal statement with only certain things on it, then those are the things that the bank can come after.
Is that info in your book?
Yeah, it's all in the book.
Where do we find the book, Winning at Entrepreneurship?
Just go to, it's nice and easy, go to the www.winning, then the letter E.com, winninge.com.
winninge.com. Rod Robertson, my guest this morning. Winning and Entrepreneurship, insider's tips on buying, building, and selling your own business.
Thanks so much for listening to the BS with Bob podcast. Basically, it's just me pulling up the metaphorical bar stool and chatting with everyone from entertainers to educators to business owners to marketing gurus. You know, people who've done cool things, survived weird stuff, and have a good story to tell. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast.